Gators take it to the wire in Billy Napier's debut in Gainesville. Exciting finish against Utah. Now it's on to the SEC in Kentucky. We got David Waters on the line from Gators Breakdown. You should know the drill. Get on over to Gators Breakdown right here on YouTube or your favorite audio platform. Best Florida football coverage right there. David, how's it going?
Going good, Mark. Going good. A lot of excitement in Gator Nation right now. So trying to keep up with it all.
For sure. For sure. So we can call it lucky, we can call it clutch. Where do you draw the line in between those two extremes?
Hey, going against the number 7 team in the country, you take a win any way you get it. Billy Napier's first game, you take away any way you can get it. And like, look, I mean, yeah, however you want to define it, that's up to your personal belief and how you want to view the game there. There were plenty of plays Florida left on the field at the same time. They're driving down the field, opening drive of the game, and a fumble that Utah returns all the way back to the 25-yard line, sets up an easy score. But then, Cam Rising had shown the propensity to struggle in the red zone in his career so far at Utah when the field gets condensed, and then you put those Florida athletes in a condensed little setting right there. Florida's athletes were able to take over a bit in a couple of times in the red zone. They had a goal line stand there for Florida at the same time, and then that last drive, Mark, that you're referencing, whether you want to call it luck or whatever, I mean, Florida dropped a interception that would have ended the game 4 or 5 plays before that. The game shouldn't even really come down to Utah driving down the field right there at the end. Now, don't get me wrong. Utah had drove up and down the field on Florida in the second half of that game. The great halftime adjustments by them by coming out basically jumbo package with 3 tight ends at times and an extra offensive lineman at times. Florida didn't really adjust all that well. You could tell that kind of maybe even caught them off guard a bit in Utah doing that changing those. But kind of going to the end of the game there, that could have ended a little bit earlier for Florida. And one more time, the Gators defense stands strong in the red zone, getting that pick there by Amari Burney. So yeah, Mark, it was a game that could have went either way. Honestly, it really could have. And look, that was a game I was expecting. I had a 30-27 Gator victory. It was 29-26. That was a point off both ways right there. And the game pretty much played out like I thought it would. I knew Cam Rising, his running ability, would cause an issue for Florida. I knew Brant Kuithe, I think I said it last week when you're on Brant Kuithe was going to hurt Florida. And sure enough, he did. So, all the mismatches, all the matchups in that game that were favoring Utah or favoring Florida, I mean, the game pretty much turned out like I thought it would.
David, I was just going to brag that I had it pegged too, like mid-20s down to the wire. That's what I said. But no, I didn't come within 1 point at the final score. So you got me on that one. No doubt about that. And folks, we know this is not a Utah show, but I got to ask this question because I'm sure you watched that final play like 18 times. I saw it live and I saw one replay and I just thought, Cam Rising, I understand maybe he didn't see one of those linebackers, but even if Burney doesn't make that interception, he was trying to throw it through 2 guys to a tight end who was sitting on his rear end in the end zone. Like, what was he trying to do?
Yeah, he wasn't open either way, and you just had a guy step in front of it. I don't think the pass would have been completed anyway, but at least at that point, you live to play another down. And there was still plenty of time on the clock. I think it was 28 seconds, I think, left. So they still had more opportunities. The one thing you could not do was turn the ball over and not give yourself an opportunity again. And that's exactly what happened. And it was kind of very similar, as I mentioned, Ventrell Miller, who had an awesome game, by the way. Glad he was back because he needed to be back and help. He was all over the field making tackles, stopping that run game when it could be stopped. And as I said, very similar to linebacker just kind of drifts into the passing lane, dropped that interception. Florida kind of did the similar thing, much more compact there in the end zone, of course. But it was something that I guess Florida had studied right there with Cam Rising. When they had to pass the ball, should have been a pick earlier and then sealed it with a pick anyway.
So I'm sure you weren't surprised with Anthony Richardson's performance, and certainly NFL scouts were not surprised with his performance because they knew what he could do before we all watched it. But I think a lot of people across college football were like, oh, wow, he put it together for a full football game against a good defense. So kind of evaluate his performance.
Mark, I think, and maybe rightfully so for college football as a whole, they went back to Anthony Richardson's first start versus Georgia. And that's about all they remember. And look, Georgia made a whole lot of quarterbacks look bad last year. And one making his first start against a staff that was pretty much checked out. You were going to get that type of result last year in Jacksonville. So you fast forward a year. That's what a lot of people remember about Anthony Richardson. As I said, as a whole, if you're a casual college football fan, okay. I mean, I'm not taking anything away from you. That's probably what you saw last year. But there were some special plays last year too. That's why a lot of Gator fans were happy. That's why if you follow closely, a little closer, you could see there was some potential right there with Anthony Richardson. And then, yeah, we saw it on full display. Finally, an off season where he was the guy. He was taking the starting reps. An offense built around him, an offense where Billy Napier can figure out the things he does well, build an offense around him. And we saw it. And we saw him make plays where, the play was broken down and he makes the play anyway. Or as I said, some stuff that built around him. Florida got him on the edge a bit, used some bootlegs, flooded some wide receivers into his, make some easy reads. And he made some really good throws too. I mean, a 3rd and 15 Florida needed earlier in the game, wrote it in there for a 3rd and 19, for a 19-yard conversion. And one of the best throws you'll see over the weekend right there. And then the, of course, highlight play with a 2-point conversion and spinning around and pirouetting and find an easy throw in the corner of the end zone. I mean, yeah, he did it with his arms. He did it with his legs. He did it with, called design plays. He freelanced and made a 45-yard run for a touchdown there. Yeah, I mean, not completely surprised, Mark. I mean, maybe he did some things I didn't expect to see, like just pure special plays. But for, stat-wise, what he was able to do with his arm and his legs, not much of a surprise.
Definitely would have made Steph Curry proud on that, that crazy fake, and then bam, wizardry with the football was like it disappeared for about a split second.
And then that play also on former Gator linebacker and transfer Mamadou Diabate. So,
I didn't realize that part.
Yeah,
of it. There you go. I'm sure he's maybe seen that in practice. Didn't know that. I guess we don't call him AR-15 anymore.
No, just AR. Just
okay. AR that we would, he would pull that out in a game. Yeah, that was something else. All right, David, when we talk other playmakers on the offense, I know we talked last week about, okay, who's going to be those playmakers, Justin Shorter and others. A few guys are obviously very productive players, but what do you think about that part of the offensive weaponry after seeing them against a good defense?
Yeah, I think Mark at the receiver position, it was definitely Ricky Pearsall. You could tell Florida we're glad they went and got him out of the transfer portal. 4 catches, all 4 went for first downs. And I mentioned the 3rd and 15 conversion that he was on the receiving end of that passed out over the seam over a safety there from Richardson. As far as running back game goes, Mark, I mean, Florida proved right there. They got some running backs. We wondered why Lorenzo Lingard wasn't listed on the depth chart, and we saw true freshman Travis Etienne's little brother, 3rd on the depth chart last week. We had kind of heard throughout later on in fall camp he was making some waves. His first carry goes for 19 yards. He had another big carry later in the game that he fumbled, but luckily got back. Excuse me there. But really come in as a true freshman, played really well on the big stage. Montrell Johnson lived up to what he was billed as coming in from Louisiana, overcome an early fumble that led to an easier Utah score on that first drive right there. So, yeah, Florida's deep at the running back position. We thought they would be. They proved that to be so. So, Florida's going to be deep at running back. Probably still need to see some more at the wide receiver position. Ricky Pearsall is there, of course. Will Florida even – there's a balancing act, I think, right here with Florida's offense. And as far as, if there was something that maybe lacked last week, it was some deep passes down the field. Wasn't needed. You won the game anyway. You're going to be a run-focused team. I think Billy Napier, especially late in the game, wanted to eat clock, wanted to beat up Utah. It ended up paying off. But at some point, I think it's going to be more of a, can Florida go deep when they need to? They haven't really needed to in that game versus Utah. Will they need to versus Kentucky? Will they need to against Tennessee in a couple of weeks? I think that's where, if you have the concern about the deep passing game, I think it's more about needing to see it, and more so instead of just wanting to see it. And we haven't needed to see it yet. I'm not even sure we'll need to see it versus Kentucky.
Kentucky comes into the Swamp as a 4 or 5 point underdog. Obviously, Florida's owned the series, but this is a different Wildcat program under Mark Stoops. What is totally different about this Kentucky team after one game is that you talk about a team that wants to rely on the run. Well, that's what Mark Stoops has built at Kentucky, is a run-oriented defensive front seven, NFL players in the back seven as well. But this team, they've lost Chris Rodriguez. He's got off the field issues. So he's been one of the best backs in the conference for the last couple of years. He's gone. Cavassier Smokes, a decent back, nice back, but some of his backups are gone, injured. They're thin at running back. They couldn't run the ball against Miami of Ohio. They leaned completely on Will Levis. So this may be a completely different kind of Kentucky approach on offense than what we've seen in the past. So based on what Florida did against Utah, how do you see that playing out?
Yeah, Will Levis, also my co-host Will Miles, he put out a really nice preview today and showed there's a stark difference of Will Levis at home and on the road as well. He didn't play very good against Florida last year, even at home. As bad as we want to, shun Todd Grantham and all that stuff, that was one of his best performances last year. I think Levis only had 81 yards passing last year, and I think 40 of that was a Wan'Dale Robinson screen and 4 touchdowns. Did not play well versus this Florida defense last year. So now we know coaching change coming in. Didn't play well on the road last year. So maybe if you combo those type of things, if the game is going to be on Will Levis' shoulder a bit more, without Wan'Dale Robinson, of course, Tavion Robinson transfers from Virginia Tech. So can they get similar production out of another Robinson, different type of receiver, of course. But they're going to rely on him to, I think, help Will Levis. This game, I think, will be more on his shoulders without Chris Rodriguez. He was going to be the leading returner in the SEC at the running back position this year as far as yardage goes, and he's not there for Kentucky now. And Mark, as you mentioned, they have to go down the depth chart. Cavassier Smokes seems like he's been there forever at Kentucky, but he's going to be the guy there. And I'm not sure anybody behind him can really step up and take it up and take the mantle. So I do think it's going to be more on Will Levis's arm and his legs. I do expect him to maybe even have some success and even try to run the ball a bit more with some more design runs by Kentucky right there, especially after Cam Rising had some success last week, kind of chewing up the Florida defense with his legs. So, yeah, I think, Mark, I think the game's going to be if it plays out this way. Florida's run defense did struggle last week. We'll see what adjustments they make at the same time. But I think Kentucky will probably come in, try to run the ball, make it a little easier for Will Levis, see if they can have some of the same success Utah had in running the ball last week. But if they can't, Will Levis is going to have to go prove that he can on the road because Florida's secondary was not tested at all last week. It was tight ends on linebackers, and that's how they exposed Florida's defense, which we pretty much knew was going to happen. Florida's secondary might as well just been on the sideline because they weren't used last week. So if the game is on Levis, we'll get to see this Florida secondary, which most of us are really high on. We'll get to see more action from them this week.
Talking about the secondary, Trey Dean was obviously involved in the game, but supporting the run with 12 tackles here.
That was just number-wise too. He didn't really have that good of a game. So
okay.
Numbers-wise, say it, but he out of position, missed some tackles as well. I mean, had 12, of course, but we need to see better from Zero out there.
Okay, because I was going to lead into this. I watched every play of the game, but I'm not charting it. I'm not analyzing it that deeply, just the one live version. And then I'm looking at the box score and I'm seeing all the names that I know on defense making plays, all the big players, Dean, Brenton Cox, Ventrell Miller, Mari Burney, of course. So the defensive standouts stepped up in a big game.
Yeah, numbers-wise for sure. Brenton Cox had his normal up and down. Like, he'll have plays you absolutely remember, and he'll have plays you'll remember on the bad side as well. He still got the issues with contain sometimes. Some of Cam Rising's big runs there because Brenton Cox crashing down on the defensive end or on the running back and leaves it wide open there for a big run. But also had some really nice tackles behind the line of scrimmage at the same time when he did key in on the running back. So Utah key, nice adjustment. All right, you go play the running back that much where you tackling 3-4 yards behind the line of scrimmage, we'll get you next time. And that's exactly what happened. So that's just been Brenton Cox's game there. Hopefully at some point, they can drill it in his head to be a little more cognizant of keeping contained there. But yeah, he'll be on the field. He'll be a playmaker for this Gator defense. Ventrell Miller, already spoke on him, of course. Glad to have him back there at the middle linebacker role, helping kind of control that run game for the offense. And there were some young guys who did some good things too. On that last drive, Mark, Devin Moore, true freshman cornerback, he was out there on that very last drive of the game. Had a big tackle really limited yards after the catch as Utah was driving. It was a big hit as well. We saw action from Shamar James, Desmond Watson, Tyreek Sapp as well, who really opened up the big goal line stand. It was opened up by Tyreek Sapp taking on a block, opening that lane for Ventrell Miller just to fly in and make a hard hit on the Utah running back. That was caused by Tyreek Sapp opening up that lane there for the defense. So saw some young guys get a lot of playing time, Mark, and after the last staff kind of refused to play a lot of young guys, it was nice to see young guys in early and making an impact.
I see Shamar James with 4 tackles. He was a huge recruit.
Yeah, true freshman out there. And as we saw last week, Florida's he's more one of the true linebackers, Mark, that the last staff recruited. He committed to the last staff, decommitted, recommitted back to Billy Napier's staff there, but needed to get him in. Florida lacks true linebackers. They've had to mold some guys, fit some guys in, and Shamar James, look, you don't have to teach him to play linebacker. He knows how to play linebacker. Now it's just learning to play linebacker at the college level. It's not trying to fit a defensive end to play linebacker. It's not trying to convert a safety to play linebacker. We have a true linebacker now. That's why I think he's been able to make an impact. He knows that he has the instincts. He has the wherewithal to learn to know how to play linebacker. So I expect to see more on his plate week by week, and especially with these tough physical teams like Utah and Kentucky, where you're going to need more than just 2 linebackers to go in there and make a play. Yeah, I expect Shamar James to get a bigger role as the season goes on.
David Waters Gators Breakdown. Get on over there, favorite audio platform, or right here on YouTube. David, you mentioned tough physical games. So would you rather have the battle-tested team, which would be Florida, or the team that Kentucky certainly didn't steamroll Miami of Ohio, but once they got it going and they separated themselves, obviously a much easier opponent and game, and then having to turn around and play another difficult game in the SEC. So would you rather have the cupcake into the difficult game, or back-to-backs here?
Well, good for Florida. Mark, they're coming out healthy. Even after that tough physical game versus Utah, Florida's pretty healthy. No major injuries. Everybody's expected to play in this game well versus Kentucky. I think Florida learned a lot about themselves last week versus Utah. And I think playing a team like that, I think you learned a lot about where your team is. Did Kentucky on the other end of things? I think they pretty much even admitted this week they probably kept some of the quarterback run game under wraps versus Miami of Ohio. But I don't know, why that would get out there if that's the case. But okay. But even after, with Florida struggles last week, of course they were going to work on that in practice this week anyway. And Levis is athletic, and then that's not a secret either. So Florida's probably going to work on it anyway. So no holding secrets back. But yeah, Mark. I guess we know more about Florida than we do Kentucky at this point. So, I mean, I guess at that point it's probably advantage Florida. But, Kentucky has come into this game before, Mark, where they didn't look really so good versus maybe a MAC team or a lower tier team, and still end up playing Florida very well anyway. So, at least for this, Mark, it's probably playing out the way it should. With Billy Napier's and his first staff and his first year in Gainesville, it's not there's no smoke and mirrors, I don't think, with Florida right now. You know what you're getting after game one already. Can they build on some things as they install more, as more experience comes? Of course. I go back to 2018, the first time Florida lost to Kentucky in over 30 years. Florida opened with Charleston Southern, I think. Felipe Franks goes crazy and passing the ball, and you could tell they wanted to try and get him ingrained and comfortable in the offense. Well, okay, that did not translate whatsoever the next week, and you lose to Kentucky for the first time in over 30 years. We know where this Florida team is. We know what they can do. We know what they can do well. We know what they need to work on. So I think, there's no smoke and mirrors, Mark. They know what they need to get better at this week, and I think that will play some benefits in going against Kentucky.
I guess the bottom line there is, folks, don't overreact. Generally, Florida looked great. Kentucky didn't look great, but man, Kentucky's been doing this for the last 5 or 6 years since they don't blow anybody out.
Mark, in recent history, the 2020 game versus that elite Florida offense was about the only blowout. It's been 2-2 over the last 4 games. Even before they broke the streak, they were so close to breaking the streak a few times. This game's had some high dramatic moments the last, like you said, handful, 5, 6, 7 years.
And finally, David, the entire offseason, we talked about how Florida was kind of a wild card program, at least for me. I didn't know which way it was going to break necessarily. I had my ideas and I had my prediction, of course, but you put LSU maybe in the same basket or a Florida State in the same basket where you've got blue blood programs that have talent, that bring in a new coach, or in Florida State's coach, obviously, Norvell, where there's just uncertainty. Which way is this going to break? And with Florida, obviously, just the one down year, but call it luck, call it momentum, call it whatever you want. The difference between, is this close between, the linebacker, Bernie makes a play, you win the game in the Florida State LSU blocked kick, and suddenly, everybody's out for Brian Kelly's never going to do anything at LSU, or maybe Florida State's back or Florida's back. So, it's a fickle sport, and it breaks one way or the other on one or two plays, but there's some momentum there for Florida now, and they got to feel great. And if they can back this up with a win against Kentucky and then fall into some easier games, wow, this could be a great start to the season.
Yeah, Mark, I said before the season, with Florida, I'll admit it might be homer, it might be orange and blue glasses. I had Florida 9-3, and I had them second in the SEC East. I had Tennessee next, and I had Kentucky fourth. I haven't been that high on Kentucky even before the season. I can share my SEC media ballot if I have to. So, but I said 9-3, and then kind of going to your point there, if the season goes one way or the other, I was closer to 8-4 than I was 10-2. Now after win over Utah, you might switch that. Okay, now I still say 9-3 in some form or fashion, but now if it breaks one way or the other, now I might lean more 10-2 than I would 8-4. And that's what a victory over a top 10 team would do. LSU, if we're going to overreact, maybe not as good as we thought they would be. FSU, if that was a game you thought where both teams looked bad, okay, well, you look forward to the end of the season, and FSU should be a win as well. So, yeah, I mean, this victory right here, Mark, can really change the tides of Florida's to go one way from 9-3, where they could end up 10-2. Got tough games, of course, still Tennessee, Georgia, Texas A&M. You lost to South Carolina last year. How much will they improve throughout the year as well? So, still a lot of tough games to go for Florida. It's hard not to overreact to week one, but. And Mark, I mean, after Kentucky, Florida will probably have the toughest 2-game stretch to start the season. We'll know a lot about this team as the clock goes final Saturday night. You'll be hard pressed to find two, but at least where the season stands right now, hard pressed to find two better victories if Florida walks out of the swamp with another victory Saturday.
My rankings will definitely reflect that. Florida is right now number 4 in the country. People think I'm crazy. It's not they're the
and I get both ways, Mark. But if you throw away every preseason notion you had, then there's the avenue for there. If you just take this season, zoom in on this season, why wouldn't you? Now that doesn't mean Florida's the 4th best team, but right now I think if you go by pure resume, and if you're a believer in Utah, then okay, then
that's the formula. That's the formula. David Waters, Gators Breakdown. Get there. Even if you don't like the Gators, if you love college football, it's one of the best finds you will get. David, appreciate it. As always, enjoy the game.
Thanks, Mark.